part of mind control, because
Yeah.
a lot of it is to do with, blackmailing politicians by having them sleep with their slave, and then they'll film it.
There you go.
There's obviously a massive kind of library somewhere full of these kind of videos of old politicians and people in power, using some of these slaves. So to me, it's just kind of, these people are needed to control the whole system.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's that could be potentially one of the most important areas. It's just that this aspect to mind control slaves and the whole sex industry business behind it is possibly, just one cog in the scheme of how things are being run in order to keep the conspiracy basically going, and keep the agenda on roll, and again to bring in politicians, and again, if you probably what ends up happening is that unless you, as a politician or higher up the ladder, banker, business CEO, whatever it might be, in a important enough corporation, if you don't go along with that in some way, then you're probably not going to reach the top, and it's one can speculate, of course, what is taking place and what is going on, but again, I'm thinking back to the whole story that's been running with Larry Sinclair. Interesting name. He chose that. He changed his name as well, of course, but his story in relation to that he gave a blow job, as it were, to Mr. President Obama, and that could be a similar thing right there, when he was involved in Chicago politics, which have a background in the mob obviously, Chicago area, but could be that either you go ahead with this and do this, and we're going to film you while you're in that car or wherever they were at, and then we're going to keep that on tape. And if you ever, cross the boundary or cross the border or what we say to do, your career will be ruined. Everything, your children will know about it. Your wife, everything will go shattering to pieces. And that's a very, very powerful thing that they can hold against him.
So, I mean, some of these politicians, they come into it, they probably think that they really want to change things for the better, but then they just find out that it's filled with all this blackmail, and they'll kind of be suckered into a situation which will leave them with a picture that they don't want let out, or they'll actually sleep with a girl. But they don't even have to. If they are a good person, then they don't actually sleep with the girl, as long as the girl is kind of near them and they're looking, they're kind of flirting with them or something. That'll probably be enough to keep them under their thumb for the time being.
Could be.
But then as they kind of enjoy the perks, as it were, of being, because when you're being blackmailed, you're kind of made a part of you are sort of part of their club in a way, because they are not, because nobody knows about it except the people who are blackmailing you, so you can get away with more and more stuff anyway, which gives them more and more opportunity to blackmail you with more and more bad stuff.
And
it's kind of nasty spiral.
Absolutely, and occasionally they do throw people to the wolves and to the media, as it were. I'm thinking of people like Elliot Spitzer, from New York, for instance, and the whole call girl business there. It's like
and then the DC madam who ended up being suicidal.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, people like Elliot Spitzer, I almost see them as kind of being more innocent than pretty much all of the politicians in Congress there who stayed after he'd gone, because to me, there are far worse things going on than what Elliot Spitzer did.
Of course.
I mean, just look at Senator Robert Byrd. God knows how he's still alive. He's the Kathy O'Brien's long-term owner.
Okay.
And he, on Obama's inauguration, he actually had to leave because Edward Kennedy was having his usual brain malfunction, as all the Kennedys seem to do. Well, after if they're not dead already, I mean.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
And so it's just a bit. Yeah, what were we talking about?
Yeah, well, we're talking about how freaking filthy the system is. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's difficult to kind of stay focused because there's so many different aspects to it. So it's so multi-layered.
It is. And as we talked about with Todd Campbell, again, the same thing comes up. Everything is interconnected, and again, that's just the way things work. Things are not disconnected in this world, because conspiracy, in order to keep everything in check, so to speak, you have to control all the different pieces that might potentially fall out, and it also, I think it also shows that they're not all powerful, because again, the information is getting out on how things are being run, and mistakes are being made.
Yeah.
And people are being discovered, and information is being leaked here and there.
Yeah, I think it's really, I'm surprised that even things like Kathy O'Brien's book even exist because of literally after a whole life of being traumatized and just being dissociative pretty much the whole time. I'm surprised that anyone has ever been able to write an account as much as she has. So It's amazing, really, that these things have come out in the past decade or two.
Absolutely, and we should encourage that there be be glad that that level of free speech exists in that sense. And again, all these things and all the aspects that are mentioned by Kathy O'Brien, are they true? I'm not sure. Again, what level of mind control has been going on to derail her into one area? What might be true memory? What might not be? It's very the water is muddy here, so to speak. But again,
you have to take everything. You have to take what you think is right and just try and do your best to pick out what isn't right.
Yeah.
And especially with things like I was mentioning, Fritz Springmeier's works. There's obviously a lot of really, really amazing stuff on like the programming techniques and the different types of programming and general information on Marilyn Monroe and other slaves like that. But at the same time, there's also this big kind of Christian overtones, so you just have to be aware that there are people that you're reading may be mind controlled themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think that's a good place to round things off here for the second segment. I've really enjoyed having you with us here today, Ben, and I want to encourage you to keep up the good work and continue with a balanced outlook and proceed in the best way that you can. I think you're doing great work, and leave us a little bit by mentioning your URL to your blog again, and if there's something else you'd like to just mention here in the last few minutes, I guess.
And just want to say thanks a lot for having me on your show. It's been quite interesting to see how I managed to verbally talk about this, because like my friends and stuff, they're not really interested in any of this conspiracy stuff. So it's nice to actually be able to talk about it just in general.
Yes.
But anyway, my blog, I'll just give out the URL again, is pseudocultmedia.blogspot.com, pseudocultmedia.blogspot.com. And I don't really have much else to say.
Okay, well, keep up the good work. Again, all the links will be up on Red Creations. Follow Ben's work, and thank you again, Ben, for coming on. We'll talk more later on, and we'll definitely want to have you back at some point on the program and go into maybe a little more detail in some of these cases and really study something a bit more in detail. But I think that this was a very good overview and a good way to begin and introduce you and your work to our listeners.
Definitely. I think I'd like to be a bit more clearer on just the general programming and some of the more specifics in future if we do that.
Absolutely. Let's do it. Thank you again, Ben, for coming on. And thank you, everyone out there, for listening. Take good care, and we'll talk more later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
That's our program with Ben Singleton. Thank you very much for listening. Heads up on our live shows, live webcasts, and much more radio coming your way. Also, send us your own created music. We want to hear it and play it on Red Ice. Click on Bumper Music in the radio archive and read more. Take good care. In the meantime, we'll see you on the web. Bye-bye.